Hi everyone. Today I'm going to present on the effectiveness of the education cluster during the COVID-19 in Nepal. The presentation is divided into 5 sections. First, I'll provide background, then we'll highlight on research question, followed by methodology, findings, and conclusion. So I begin with the background idea of my presentation briefly. The cluster approach was introduced in 2006 by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Clusters are group of humanitarian organizations, UN and non-UN, in each of the main sectors of humanitarian action. Aims to address the gaps in humanitarian response and strengthen system-wide preparedness and coordination of technical capacity to respond to humanitarian emergencies. Initially, the cluster approach established global clusters in 9 areas of humanitarian response, such as health, water, sanitation, education, nutrition, logistics, and so on. Country-level clusters were established immediately, selected rollout countries, and were to be established for all major new emergencies. As per the report of Interagency Standing Committee, IASC 2006, at country level, cluster approach aims to strengthen partnerships and the predictability and accountability of international humanitarian action by improving prioritization and clearly defining the roles and responsibilities of humanitarian organizations. The education cluster was established by the Interagency Standing Committee (AASC) in 2007, bringing together NGOs, UN agencies, academics, and other partners to address educational needs during the humanitarian crisis. The education cluster, there is a co-leadership arrangement between UNICEF and Save the Children at the global level, and the same applies to the country where they are present. In Nepal, the cluster approach was introduced by Nepal's IASC in 2009, formalizing the cluster mechanism led by sectoral government, led by humanitarian agencies, and supported by the concerned member agencies working in the area. Ministry of Education, Science and Technology taking overall responsibility, responding to all educational needs during, during the emergencies, and is being supported by education cluster units, UNICEF and Save the Children and other development partners. As COVID-19 began to spread in Nepal in March 2020, the government of Nepal enforced lockdown for 4 months as in other parts of the world. This is when the education cluster at federal, provincial, and local levels came into existence to respond to the challenges posed by COVID-19 in the education sector. According to Plastro 2011, the cluster approach has been successful to respond to the humanitarian crisis in the context of Pakistan after the major flood of 2010. In this context, this research aims to look at Nepal's education cluster and its role during COVID-19 pandemic. In this domain, there is a general lack of research focusing on specific sectors, and especially in the context of Nepal. Therefore, this research aims to contextualize Nepal's case against the background that is taking place globally. It is concluded that there are some good practices that take place as a result of reforming some education cluster while also improving the educational governance, although there were some rooms for making education cluster more effective with their roles and responsibilities. Now, I'll move on to the major findings section. One of the most obvious aspects of the education cluster was that it turned out to be a space to share information among development partners and government authorities. As a result, development workers could easily get updates on government policies and programs relating COVID-19 and the education sector because they would share such resources in the group as soon as it's available. This could enable development partners what options to take to move ahead in the context of COVID-19, tailoring their activities as appropriate. Similarly, they would share new initiatives they have undertaken responding to educational needs in a regular meeting, and this could be helpful for others to tailor and adapt their context. The second thing that the education cluster did is it prepared a response plan, taking account of looming crises in the sector, predicting three different scenarios in which pandemic would unfold over the next few months and actions that could be taken in that context. This was one of the important tasks accomplished during the time. This way, it gave them a kind of confidence among the education stakeholders, providing them a sense of what to do in what context and how. The third good aspect of the education cluster is that it collected data relating to the education sector regularly as per the need. At first, a mapping was undertaken in relation to accessibility to internet, radio, television, etc., so that it would enable us to explore alternative ways of continuing education. It was so surprising that only 7% schools had internet access, which exposed the paradox between national level discourse of online teaching and learning and the actual context in that regard at the ground. Similarly, the data on schools used as quarantines were collected district-wise with the purpose of having plans to disinfect schools priorities due. Nonetheless, there were not much initiatives afterwards in disinfecting schools. In fact, there were much confusion about how to clean and disinfect schools that were used as quarantines of the stakeholders. And many schools may have reopened without disinfecting as observed context. What this shows is that some of the issues prioritized in education cluster meetings were hardly implemented for several reasons. The fourth positive aspect of the education cluster is that it explored gaps and prepared action plans collectively. For example, while discussing about radio message broadcasts and safety measures during the pandemic, it came to the light that no one had a plan to broadcast public service announcements (PSA) in one of the districts of the province. Given this context, one of the development partners took the responsibility for that. This way, the education cluster had been invited to make such humanitarian responses more effective. There were also some collaborations to minimize costs and risk more widely. For example, Mercy Corps and Good Neighbors collaborated for the production and disinfection of radio class for grade 10 students. While Mercy Corps borne the cost of producing radio class, Good Neighbors took responsibility for the cost of its broadcasting. This way, it is a good practice of being cost effective by means of collaboration. There are also such initiatives for distributing self-learning kits developed by the education cluster at the federal level. To conclude, the education cluster undertook close collaboration to respond to the emerging issues in the education sector during the first wave of COVID-19 in the Sudur province of Nepal. And it turned out to be a good platform to share, learn, and cooperate among government and non-government sectors. This process facilitated make ongoing educational response more effective, reducing gaps and potential overlaps. In some ways, it made educational response cost effective as well. Moreover, the educational governance turned out to be more responsive as a result of the establishment and operationalization of the education cluster. This is so because the cluster meetings took account of unfolding situation and prepared action plans to respond to them collaboratively. The regular updates also took place regarding what action plans are accomplished and what is remaining, thereby making the government authorities and development partners accountable. Therefore, the education cluster made concerned stakeholders more proactive than in the usual times. That is the end of the presentation. Thank you.